Okay, let's have a look at the rubric. What is it that you're going to be marked on and how you're going to be marked? For language, you get 10 marks. If you are your language, all the columns are separated into good, average and poor. Good is roughly 7 to 10 marks, average is roughly 4 to 6 marks, poor is roughly 0 to 3 marks. So if it's good, your spelling is correct, your grammar is correct, your paraphrasing has been done correctly, you have the appropriate language. And so if your language is poor, average, your spelling is mostly correct, your grammar is mostly correct, etc. If it's poor, your spelling is generally incorrect and your grammar is incorrect and so forth. So all the different columns, all the different elements that we look at are rated based on good, average and poor. Then you need to have a good appearance. Is it typed? Are the pages numbered correctly? Is there a cover page? Are there headings numbered? Is the font size the same all throughout the document? Or do you have an 11 font here and a 12 font here and a 15 font here and etc.? Or do you have an Arial here and Times New Roman here? The font size and the font type needs to be the same throughout. And then you also need a declaration page. Executive summary is not an introduction. The executive summary covers highlights of all the different sections in your document and is roughly 1 to 2 pages in length. Each paragraph of your executive summary relates to a different section in your document. So it gives a good, if someone had to read it, they would get a good overview of your document. Okay, and I'll give an example of an executive summary. Table of contents, correct headings that correspond with the document. All the headings are covered. The pages are numbered correctly in your table of contents. Then there's the introduction section. You need to give a good introduction to who you are as a professional, and it must be clear in which industry you are aspiring to be a professional. Then your promoters and stakeholders, section 1.2. All the stakeholders are listed. The various people in your life that you consider stakeholders, that have an invested interest in your life, and you must prioritize them effectively. Each stakeholder's influence on your life as a student needs to be explained and clarified clearly. Then section 1.3, the industry description. All 4 questions are effectively answered. You will see this in your template. Which 4 questions? All the answers relate to your chosen industry and enough information has been given. Then 1.4.1, problems and opportunities. You've listed at least 5 problems and opportunities. 5 problems and 5 opportunities. All of them relate to your chosen industry and all of them make sense for your chosen industry. You need to think about this quite carefully. Section 1.4.2, problem statement. The problem statement relates perfectly to the problems and opportunities mentioned in 1.4.1, and the statement effectively summarizes the problems and opportunities mentioned. So you need to develop a statement that relates to your problem and opportunities and summarizes them effectively. Then 1.4.3, your professional people solution. Basically that means how are you going to develop yourself in order to accomplish those opportunities or take advantage of those opportunities and minimize those problems in the industry of your choice. Okay? And I'll show you an example of that. 1.5, products and services, which is your skills and knowledge. All 6 areas are effectively covered and all 6 areas are covered properly and thoroughly. Make sure that you cover them thoroughly. The customers, 1.6, customer description. The customers mentioned needs to relate to your chosen industry. They are actual organizations in your chosen industry and they are potential employers for you, okay, as a professional person. 1.7, the SWOT analysis. All 4 elements are covered: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. And remember, strengths and weaknesses are internal, opportunities and threats are external in the marketplace. Strengths and weaknesses have to do with you, have to do with the brand. What are your strengths and weaknesses? Whereas opportunities and threats are what opportunities are there in the market and what threats are there in the market. Then we have positioning, introduction, 1.8. All the sections have been completed. Your competitive advantage section effectively shows how you are different from your competitors and USP, the unique selling proposition, has been identified effectively. Okay, then you move on to section 2, the marketing strategy, which is start with segmentation. 2.1.1, you select a market or product category. So you need to identify your niche market effectively. Basically what you engage in here is a segmentation process. Section 2.1.2, you list the potential needs in that market. 4 or more needs need to be listed. The needs need to make sense for your chosen industry and niche target market. Then 2.1.3, basis for segmentation. You develop criteria. You choose criteria that will relate to your segment, and it must make sense for your industry. Then you develop segmentation descriptors. You choose relevant sub-variables. So for example, if you chose demographic over here, then you must choose age, but actually age wouldn't apply for an organization. So maybe age of the organization. Yeah. So you need to develop relevant sub-variables for each segment, and it must make sense for your industry. Then you segment the market. You effectively segment the market using your chosen criteria. You need to include contact details of the organizations for each segment, and you'll see in my example what that looks like. Then 2.1.6 and 2.1.7 are combined. That's the homogeneous segments and the determining dimensions. These are the similar organizations that are grouped together, and you need to look at the focus area of each segment. You need to define the focus area of each segment and develop the determining dimensions for each segment. Then 2.1.8, the qualifying dimensions. These are the critical elements related to choosing an employer, the qualifying, what is going to qualify a specific employer for you to actually pursue them, to work for them. Okay? And it's relevant to the specific industry and to you as a professional. Okay? It needs to be well explained. And then lastly, you choose your target segments, and you need to name them, and you need to give a reason for why you've chosen them. Okay, so that is segmentation. Then targeting, how each segment is going to be targeted. You need to discuss that, which approach you're going to use, and it needs to be realistic, and it needs to make sense. Then we move on to positioning. The attributes. You first develop an attribute list, 2.3.1, and you basically go through a positioning process here as defined in your textbook and as we've discussed. So first you develop attributes that are desired by organizations in your industry, and you need to make sure that there are enough, at least 5, and the attributes need to be relevant. Then you rank the attributes based on what's most important to least important. Then you develop 4 quote-unquote fake competitors. Okay, these are competitors that have different strengths in the industry and who you can use to position yourself against. Then you develop a perceptual map where you plot these 4 fake competitors as well as yourself on the map, and you need to explain why you've chosen those specific positions. Then you develop a positioning strategy, whether it's in the gap or not in the gap, and the strategy needs to make sense. Then you develop your positioning house as a way to differentiate yourself. Develop all the elements of the house together, specifically differentiation related, and then you develop your positioning slogans. Now just to note that this section, the differentiation section, is actually worth a lot more marks than is indicated here. It is worth roughly 30 marks actually, so please make sure that you make sure that you put in a lot of effort with that section. Alright, and then you develop positioning slogans that can be used to promote your personal professional brand that relate to the unique selling proposition, and they need to be creative. Alright, and that is the rubric. That is what you will be marked on.